What's going on, guys? My name is Triforce Addiction. Welcome back to another COD mode video. So today we are going to be discussing the PPSH because I'm surprised not a lot of people are actually discussing the weapon, given that it has received a huge change for Season 10. The gameplay that you're seeing doesn't really do it justice, given the fact that I think I was like the only player, real player in this lobby. No, actually no. Now that I look at the kill feed, there was actually another guy, but I guess he was trash. So I guess I couldn't win the match. So yeah, I looked back at this footage. This was like about maybe the same day that the update came out, so I could test it. And yeah, the first match wasn't really the greatest, and I kept getting killed by this guy named "You're gay if you kill me." So since I killed him multiple times, I guess I'm now LGBTQ. So that's always nice. But anyways, let's actually talk about the PPSH. So for a long time, the PPSH has been one of those SMGs that has had a lot of good potential. I mean, the hipfire is absolutely insane, even if you don't put any attachments that could augment the hipfire ability. But I will say that, you know, in other instances, like the 4-shot range and I guess the fire rate has, you know, always been considered pretty good, at least in my standards. But much like the PKM back in the old days, it was always held back by one fatal flaw, which of course was the recoil pattern. So I did reference the PKM because at its current state right now, the PKM is probably one of the better LMGs to use, given its high bullet impact and damage and overall stability, but it always wasn't that way. I mean, it wasn't always that way. Sorry for my wording, but yes. Back in the day, I mean, that thing had a lot of weapon bounce, a lot of vertical recoil, and it wasn't until like maybe a few changes to the weapon that they finally were able to stabilize the gun. And the same could be said about the PPSH, but I guess the opposite, because this one actually had more horizontal recoil than vertical recoil. Unfortunately for the PPSH, it's been very bad since, I guess, the release of the weapon. You know, that horizontal recoil was always one of the biggest killers for the weapon, so it never really had a time to shine. People mainly just used it for its hipfire benefits. Make no mistake, I mean, they have tried to mitigate the issue a few times. You know, they added a lot of changes to horizontal recoil for this gun specifically, but in most cases, it was never really enough. The gun still required you to use the resilient foregrip, the long barrel, just anything that could stabilize the recoil while at the same time just reducing your speed like crazy. So there was never really a true way of using like a very fast build. No stock, the light barrels, just anything was kind of just off limits given the fact that, again, recoil was terrible. So why would anyone just make it worse? Even if you had all those recoil attachments stacked together, it still did almost nothing. Maybe to the vertical recoil, yeah, it stabilized it more. But when it came to the horizontal recoil with the resilient foregrip, the long barrel, it did absolutely nothing. So yeah, this gun was incredibly problematic to use, and that's why I don't really see a lot of people using it. But in BR, I will say that in BR, it was balanced a lot differently, where if you use it in that mode, it's a lot more stable for some reason. It's like there's no recoil at all with that weapon if you use it like in Alcatraz. But in multiplayer, it's a completely different gun. However, there was one saving grace for this weapon. I know a lot of people may not have known this, but if you did use the light muzzle brake on that PPSH, it would actually reduce the horizontal recoil almost completely. Or if anything, it would probably take out most of it. That was something that the barrel couldn't do, or even the resilient foregrip. And I've said this many times on the channel where, you know, there are certain attachments, despite what the stats say, that actually work better than others. Yeah, it was one of those things. Like, for example, like during year 1 of the Gunsmith, where the KN-44 had nothing but just a crazy amount of horizontal recoil, you would think that using one of those muzzle brakes would actually help the horizontal recoil, but if you just simply use the strike stock, it would just take it out completely. And that's kind of what I mean when it comes to like certain attachments working better than others, even if the stats are lower than the attachments that are actually supposed to help the recoil. I don't know, the Gunsmith is weird. Sometimes it just doesn't really make any sense at all. It's one of those things. But yeah, I mean, it did stabilize the gun for the most part, but of course you also had the issue with movement. And yeah, I mean, this gun has 3 different ammo capacity options. You could just use the 65 round mag, which is the default, or you could lower it down to get a little bit of speed with the 55 round fast mag. And there was another one called the 35 round fast mag, which basically maximized your movement speed. For me, I always ran that with maybe a ammo crate to replenish my ammo, because I mean, I do last pretty long in some of these lobbies, so yeah, I'm not like the 35 round mag guns could only last you so long, especially with the fire rate that the PPSH does have. Unfortunately for me, since I couldn't run a suppressor, I think that was the only major downside of the muzzle brake. But keep in mind, if you don't use that attachment, then you're pretty much screwed with the recoil. So overall, that's kind of been my overall experience with the PPSH, and I've enjoyed using it. And to be honest with you guys, I've always used the Ember Wing since that was like the only legendary that I did have. But when I actually ended up buying this one, the Combustion, for some reason this one feels a lot more easier to control. I don't know why, but yeah, this is always like the easier legendary. But what they did in this update, they didn't really do much. They just lowered the horizontal recoil again, but this time it actually worked. It's kind of like the muzzle brake is on the weapon, just built in. And yeah, you don't ever have to really worry about horizontal recoil ever again. Which means now you have a lot more freedom with attachments. You don't have to run heavy attachments in order to stabilize it, even though all you really needed was the muzzle brake. But yeah, I mean, it gives you like a free attachment space, and you could also now use like no stock or, you know, other lighter attachments to make your gun faster, which also means you could use higher capacity ammo, which in this case, now I actually kind of just use the 55 round mag instead of the 35 round. Which also means I don't have to run the ammo box anymore. I could freely run with a claw or any other lethal type of operator skill. And that's what I mean, guys. Like, small changes like this go a long way. I mean, it could mean the world for a weapon. And I would go as far as to say that the PPSH probably would have been one of the more used SMGs had this had not been a problem from the start. But hey, here we are now. We finally have the change. I'm happy that this gun's finally getting some love that it deserves. Of course, the question now is it going to be meta? Obviously not. We still have a lot of better weapons out there to use. I think kind of like right now, the most dominating weapons would probably be assault rifles at this point, like with the Switchblade being kind of like the only viable option in ranked. But it does kind of make this weapon a lot more, you know, usable. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe for some more COD mode content. I'll see you guys next time.